Righto. So episode 50 went well. It went well. We're getting good feedback. The artwork apparently is a winner.
Yeah. Does anyone know about the issues around the artwork?
Before we get into the issues of the artwork, we'll talk about that quickly. Today's guest is pretty awesome, and I'm super stoked that it's the first guest that we're going to have in the studio.
Yes. I'm also excited. I'm also a little bit intimidated by this person. Her name is Bernadette Torresan. And
you've been working on that one.
Yeah. And the reason I'm intimidated is because she's super impressive. And I want to get to know how that woman, the name of Bernadette, got to where she is right now. Because I feel like there's a strong persona behind it, but there's also a lot driving her underneath.
We may get to it in the interview, we may not, but we met in this way that was kind of strange, but also one of those weird coalescences in life where you're like, okay, that was kind of meant to happen.
Really?
Yeah. So we may get, if we get to that, I'm looking forward to see how you react to that story if we do get to it, because it was a strange set of circumstances. So.
I do want to know, because I've heard and known a lot about Bernadette, but I've never actually physically met her before. But I just know that she does impressive things around the community, and I like community. So
you like impressive things also,
and I also like impressive things. So I mean, that's two boxes ticked.
2 boxes ticked. Talking about impressive things, our artwork.
Yes.
I mean, I love where it got to. I'm super stoked. I love everything from the design to the colours to the fact we're both in it and we're both happy with how we look in there. But the first orientation of the artwork was no less graphically impressive, but content-wise, in terms of context of our two personalities, was pretty way off the mark, really, in retrospect. And you saw it and I didn't.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, that's a cool picture. And I looked at it. Same artist has done both pictures, let's just say
Tristan
that.
Tate.
And
Tristan
both
Tate
of them are impressive pictures, but I felt that the representation of me initially was a little bit off the mark. I felt like I looked like a serial killer.
Yeah.
And
it was much more a caricature than the new one.
And I do believe I questioned it, and you said, oh, you do know that caricatures and cartoons are just a higher expression of yourself. And that got me real concerned about what I portray.
I don't think I
in
would
the
have
community.
articulated it that way. It's normally an exaggeration of a character trait.
Yes.
And,
like a killer.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in that one, the character trait was your wackiness. Was just on 100 out of 50.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see it because I've had them in the past I've seen caricatures in the past that aren't always that flattering.
Yeah.
So to me, it didn't register straight away what the issue was going to be. And I looked pretty dumb in that first one, and I think people that know me.
I didn't like that either.
No, that was your actual first complaint.
Yeah, I said, you're a smart dude, and I don't like that you're being portrayed silly. And maybe the only silly thing about you is that you're hosting this with me.
Well, that was a silly choice, let's be honest.
But I didn't like that either. So I turned into a little bit of a princess.
You did. We'll talk about this going forward. We'll put this on the board, that you do have more princess tendencies. But in this case, there was nothing princess about it.
No.
You were right. And I was way off in wrong territory.
It's a cool picture, but I didn't want to be, I suppose, putting off anyone from wanting to come on, and I didn't want to stereotype us as a projection of something that. And
also, we're not a morning zoo wacky, kind of crazy that sort of show either. So I get and it's just sometimes when you create something, you have so much sensitivity around every element of it that when criticism comes from the inside, you just don't expect it.
Yes.
Because you're like, we're on the same team, aren't we? What the going on here?
That's true.
And maybe I probably just took it too personally and couldn't see it objectively.
Yes, and I feel like I do that a little bit with you, so I'm sorry. I do attack us from the inside sometimes.
And it's always unexpected. It's like I thought everything was going well.
Then all of a sudden you're like, where did that come from? Like, oh, I've been holding this back for a while.
I think we're good enough mates now, though, and we're close enough as people, and also we care about the show, that I'm also probably not as reserved in saying I don't accept
I don't accept your opinion, Mel. That's pretty
No,
much
I don't accept the portrayal of your opinion because sometimes it's a little bit harsh for the sake of being harsh. Well, it is. And then you're always so mature, though, and you always go back and you're it's something I like most about you, I think, is that you're very quick with the apology and potentially why you felt a certain way about something at the time and how you can see that maybe it didn't come off right, where some people are just, I said that, it's out there. I've got to hold my ground.
Yeah, no, I like to put context around because let's be honest, we all know that my brain gets to places sometimes quicker and sometimes in completely different realms to everyone else. So I think I'm well trained in trying to catch people up and go, this is how I got to here. You can understand it now, maybe, whether it's right or wrong. That's how I got to that point. So, yeah.
Which is good. I mean, that's only going to be better for the show.
Putting context on things. Yeah,
particularly between friends.
Yeah, let's put some context on the guests that we have coming on right after this. Bernadette.
She is the founder of the Go magazine and Go Local Media, which was an Albury-Wodonga based media company that manifested in a really beautiful physical magazine and then in the Go Local fashion show. Is it Go Fashion Show?
Do you know, here's just 3 words that is on all her sites that I resonate with. Innovation, inspiration, and collaboration. So let's just hear it from her. Let's
do it. And if you want to hear lots of people just as awesome as Bernadette going forward and help me pay for the rent on this studio, buymeacoffee.com/Joshua C. Liston or go to supportpunchingsideways.com and you can click on the button there. Buy us a few coffees or rate and review the show. And we've already got some people that are going to do it in Skype.
Yes. Get on board the Skype train, guys.
And or on their kids' online learning platforms. They're going to be punching sideways. So.
Yeah, cool.
Excellent. Let's talk to Bernadette.
Welcome back to Punching Sideways. And Josh, this is your studio. This is our studio. But we have a guest in here today, which I'm very excited about.
Is this our first guest in the new studio?
A first real-life person sitting there on the desk.
When our previous human that was in here that we tested with, they weren't alive?
This is the first one that matters, and I'm very excited about this. Bernadette Torresan. Is that how I say it?
You said it beautifully, Mel. Well done.
Perfect.
Just do it again.
Torresan.
Okay, she's all over it.
Yeah.
Now you can sell
Welcome,
those vehicles.
That's it. I'm going to get a car salesman.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is so exciting.
Do you like the space?
I love the space. Well done, Josh. I'm finally here, mate.
Yeah.
How's that?
It's been a while coming because I think you might have been at one point, may have been the first person that was going to see the studio even before Mel did.
Yeah, you missed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were moving in.
Funny story.
Yeah, I think there was 2 couches and 1 broken box at the time, so it wouldn't have been all that impressive.
It wouldn't have been impressive. And I know that we'd been trying to get you on for a little while. And when we say we, Josh had been trying to organise for you to come up and have a look. And I think I just rang you and said, hey, do you want to come and be on our show? And then you get to see the space as well. I just locked you in for a time and said, this is happening.
We were discussing in the pre-interview chatting that Mel has now become the get things done person.
Yes. That's if I'm
booking
good for
Bernadette, great job.
Yeah.
Telling the neighbour to shh.
Yeah.
Even better job.
Yeah.
Something that I've been avoiding doing all morning.
Speaking of booking, right, you've got a fashion show coming up, which is one of the reasons why, I mean, obviously when you're looking at me, you know that I love fashion, sitting here in my flanny and my leggings.
Sister is a fashionista in the flanny.
Exactly.
Loving it.
So I thought, who better would I get along with than someone who's running a fashion show? So here you are.
Thank you.
And it's actually happening very soon, actually, the 11th of October.
Yeah. Yep.
And can you just tell me a little bit, like there's a lot of backstory that goes into this before we push into the fashion show. But what originally you started a fashion magazine, didn't you?
Yeah, so I started the Go Local magazine back in 2015. And that was all about, community, bringing community together and offering a platform for our local businesses and artists and musicians to have a voice and, for us to promote them. And that came off the back of being a creative in a regional town when I was young. There was nowhere to go. Like, you had no outlet.
Yeah.
And it's tough in regional areas. So that was part of the passion. And the other part was just I love people and I love bringing people together. So being in publishing, since in my early 20s, it was just perfect, a good mix. And there's a bit of a backstory to that one too. But anyway, so it evolved from the magazine. And then it was about 2018 when things were getting really I could tell that the market in our retail sector was kind of struggling a bit because a lot of people were going online. And so I thought, how do we help promote regional retailers and designers and milliners, and how do we bring them together and give them a space to be seen? And on top of that, how do I bring people together just to have some fun? Like, for us fashionistas, we've got to go over to Melbourne or Sydney to sit down on a runway and watch it all happen. And that can get quite expensive and timely. So I thought, you know what, just use all my knowledge and skills and bring it on over here. And the way she went. And now
So what sort of pushback did you come up against originally, even with the magazine? Because I imagine starting something like that on your own, I imagine would have happened. And I've heard that you basically just walked the streets.
Yep.
And can you just tell me a little bit about how long that took and what you did to make this sort of get off the ground?
Yeah, you're right, Mel. I did. So I had no financial backing.
Yeah.
In fact, I was in probably one of the worst financial positions I'd ever been in at the time. And I struggled a lot because I got out of a messy, divorce and lost a lot of money and whatever have you. And it was actually based on necessity. It was either do that or I wasn't going to exist anymore, was where I was at. Yeah. And so, I just found all that empowerment, everything that I possibly could within, and walked the streets literally. I went and saw as many businesses as I possibly could, and I told them about the vision and, and what I was hoping to do. And at the time I spoke to the councils as well, and I said, look, when I sit down and I look at Albury-Wodonga, firstly we have an issue whereby if you've lived here all your life, you are divided by a river. And I wanted to dissolve that mentality because the reality is we have got so much to offer on both sides of the border. And I think COVID has really shown us that, particularly with our border closures. Like, that has been the biggest awakening, I think, for us.
Yeah, it's been tough.
Isn't it? So back then, I sort of thought, let's try and dissolve that. But let's also talk about Albury-Wodonga as being the heart of the region. So we see a lot of people coming around to Beechworth and Bright, and they really surround us, but we weren't very good at bringing people here into the heart at the time. So, a lot of support from our business chambers and councils, and I've had endless coffee dates and appointments, and it took years and years to build the network.
So how do you go about – so did you know in your head – so this is how my head works. Sometimes something pops in there and I just know that it's good, but to get that idea into someone else's head and get them on board is really hard. You can see the end result play out. How did you get your vision into other people's brains, basically, and get them on board with it? Because sometimes they just can't see what you can see with all the bells and whistles and everything going on, because it's either work or it's scary because it's new. Like, there's all these other different things that come into play. How did you convey that message?
Good question, hun. Look, I think just first of all, there was, a proposal that I'd put in front of them and a bit of a visual. And I think talking from the heart and the passion, really I was able to sell that to a lot of people. But there were, as much as it was supported, there were a lot of people that didn't. So a lot of people didn't get the vision and probably still can't. I've had a lot of fails and a lot of rejections along the way, but I've been very lucky to also have the right support when I needed it, and that's kind of, manoeuvred the publication forward. So that was really lucky. And I think just being a good, honest person too in business, it's people need to either like you or not. They're going to either trust you or they don't, and that's across the board. And I think, I am who I am, and I'm not going to deliver something if I don't believe in it, and I'm not going to deliver 100%.
You said something interesting in there about how Beechworth or a Bright have a certain appeal that Albury-Wodonga, up until this point in time or when the magazine started, didn't have. Is that through lack of embracing the history of Albury-Wodonga itself? I mean, you did mention that there's a delineation between the New South Wales side and the Wodonga side, and there is no shared history really besides maybe sporting rivalries, whereas Beechworth has this rich history that they've cultivated. Bright has got this beautiful autumn and spring kind of vibe that they pretty much sit everything on when it comes to promoting the area. I guess if you were to walk into a retailer, can you talk us through, because you keep talking about the vision, but what exactly was that? If Mel and I were someone that you were trying to convince, what was that vision?
Yeah, so the vision of the publication was to bring us all together. It was to dissolve the border issue, that line, and to talk about what we have to offer, not only within ourselves as a region and a township, but to Australia. So that's where I sort of went, right, I'm going to promote Albury-Wodonga in regional and metro airport lounges. And then, I was fortunate enough to secure Qantas Business Lounges Australia-wide and whatever have you. So, yeah, Josh, the vision was about building connections between the two cities and really appreciating each other. So I said just recently with this border closure, for me personally, like I live in Wodonga, but I do a lot of my shopping in Albury, and I will dine in both areas. I've heard people that live in Albury, when the borders were closed, are like, there really wasn't a lot to do over here. Like, we've got shopping, but we couldn't go to Bright and Beechworth. So it's kind of like this shared. What we needed to understand was we're just so lucky. Like, we've got all this beautiful space to share, but the division, this mentality of, if you live in Wodonga, you're, not as great as the people in New South Wales. Like, that's just, it's such an old school mentality.
So was that manifesting in the people you were talking to, though? Like, why would we care about Wodonga, or why would we care about the?
Yeah.
Because it just fascinates me what those conversations were like, because you said that you had actual pushback against it, or just maybe even worse, just disinterest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that must have been really weird at the time to think, how can you be disinterested in the greater good of the area as a whole? Like, I don't know how I'd take that. Like, it just...
Yeah, well, it takes all sorts for the world to spin around, doesn't it?
It's true, though, and I've done it on a very minor level with trying to integrate different brigades within CFA, and just said, let's make a community calendar where everyone's involved. And the amount of people that I had to push against just to get that initial idea passed. And then I knew that I had to make it good enough so that, and also being a female in a particularly sorry, Josh, but in a male-dominated industry where you're pushing against higher rung male visions of what should be and shouldn't be happening, you have to deliver a better product to make sure that they are on board. And I knew that I had some good men on my side and some that were against it. But as soon as you delivered your product, I imagine everyone was jumping on board and going, oh, yeah, this was great, and passing it around like it was part of their own thing that they had done. And I remember being very sort of pissed off, actually, that one of our fire captains was handing it around to people like in other districts, like it was his thing. And I was just like, yep.
Isn't that one of the, isn't that part of the challenge of anything that starts from a creative inflection point, where you're creating something that didn't exist into something that does exist? It is actually part of the process. Just think, okay, that's good. I've actually convinced these people that the idea is good. Now they're going to go and take that like it's their own, but you've got to be kind of happy about it if you want it to spread. I know it's not comfortable in that first moment, but
it's true. And I can imagine, Bernie, that you went big too. Like you weren't just doing like a little calendar
Can you remember any local media launch? I mean, I guess you would class it as an independent media launch, I guess more so. Can you remember any other than Bernie's magazine? I can't in the 20 years that I've been here.
I just remember it being so I've seen like when the copies were coming out originally and seeing just how well made it was and very professional. And I love tangible objects, and I always I still buy the newspaper in a tangible form. So I know at the time potentially, we're moving into a world where a lot of stuff is digital. So I really appreciate the fact that you're still looking at doing tangible things like even this fashion show that's coming up. Now, how did you feel knowing that you had this fashion show that you've been running, and again, as another community collaboration to bring people together, and then potentially with what was going on with COVID, wasn't going to be able to happen the way that you wanted it to?
Yeah. Oh, look, Mel, I was devastated. And it was a really hard space to be in over the last 6 months because, we had our first closure and it was like, okay, there's a glimmer of hope. And a lot of people that are a part of this, like it is a community collaboration, and we've got models and designers and so many people are so excited. It's their joy.
Yeah.
And I love delivering joy.
Yeah.
And so, the first closure happened. They were like, oh, what's happening with the show? Are we going ahead? And I said, look, let's just sit on it. We'll be right. I've got a feeling about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be looked after.
Yeah.
And I was saying to Josh earlier, I always have, when I'm on the right path, things just open for me.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
So I'm like, no, we'll be fine. And then the second hit happened. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And then the border closure. And I'm like, nah. And I was honestly not in a very good headspace because all year I haven't been able to deliver anything.
Yeah.
The publication folded because Qantas Business Lounges closed, advertising plummeted. It's massive impact. And then we had the event. So it wasn't easy. And look, up until just last week, I was biting my fingernails and I actually really got upset because I had a date in my head that I was going to tell everyone whether it was yay or nay, and it was on the 15th of September. And my partner was like, because I just lost it. And I'm like, I can't understand this. This is not right. I just want to do good in the world. And he's like, baby, it's okay. And then the 16th happened, and that was the announcement that they were lifting the border. I'm like, oh, I was out a day. I was out one day. I'm like, all right, good on you, buddy. You got me again. So now and then I think just last night I believe that there's been another lift again. Yeah. So I'm yet to actually look into it. But, it's great now that we can say that it's actually happening. And it's not in the space that I would have liked to have. We've had to reduce the numbers of people that can come to the show. There's obviously a lot of back-end stuff now that's adding to the stress of it, like this 1.5 metres and, how do we arrange fittings, for example. Like today, one of the emails comes through and one of the retailers said, can you please make sure all your family are located outside of the shop when you're getting fitted because we can only have maximum amount of people. So it adds a lot more pressure and stress, but at the same token, we've got so many people happy that it's happening.
So how big's your team? So you are your own formidable team. I can say that. But how many people are helping you to make this happen? Yeah.
So I'm predominantly the driver. I've got my EA Tracy that helps me.
Yeah.
I've got a team of about 60 models that will be presenting. We've got 7 designers and retailers in total. But I'm pretty much it. It's me, the driving force, pretty much full time throughout the course of the year. Yeah.
So I can imagine it would have been like the wool's been pulled out or the rug's been pulled out from underneath you when this whole thing happened. It's happened with a lot of businesses though, hasn't it? Which also makes what you're doing now even more so important given the tough year, I think, that everyone's had. It's almost like a glimmer of hope that you can bring to people and bring back a level of normalcy, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely, Mel. And that's what we said, I said, look, this year it's more than just a fashion show. This is a celebration and it is a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
So the way we're theming the SSNA is a place fit for a king and queen.
Yeah.
Like really, let's make people feel amazing. Let's get them in and feel like this is royalty and celebrate in the highest possible fashionable way ever.
That sounds so good.
So I just want to touch on something that Mel kind of touched on earlier. And I can't remember if we were in the pre-chat or at the start of the interview, you mentioned that you had a bit of a feeling about the physical magazine 2018-ish, that things might have been changing. And that's obviously been pulled forward then into COVID. With Mel was saying about the tangibility of the object, I think she said to me earlier that going into an industry that's based on something physical, basically, for the lack of a better term, analog. It's an analog version of a digital creation, but you've got the analog thing in your hand. That obviously was a pretty brave choice at the time, given that maybe, Mel, I think the way Mel put it was that it was a declining or dying industry.
Yes,
it was a dying industry.
100%.
So you're not averse to making pretty big gestures and big calls. Can you just talk us through maybe that first period? Because I think we might have skipped over what happened maybe with the magazine. Just you said that it folded, but I was hoping, if it's okay, we could maybe just talk about the progression of the magazine.
She's going to resurrect it.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So,
particularly if we can talk about just what's maybe involved, because the people who listen to this show love it when we get into the nitty-gritty on things and we dig in a bit, just about maybe the number of choices that people don't realise you have to make just to get a magazine or something analog off the ground these days. I'm assuming it was a big lift.
Oh, 100%. So you're absolutely right. Look, we talked about how I hit the streets and I had to show people a vision. Now, a lot of my throwback was also about, why would I invest in a print product when everything's going online and it's digital and we have analytics so we can see who's watching and what's watching, whatever have you. And so my sell was, you're right, you can. On screen, how many people are looking, but you actually don't know how many people are engaging in that product. And so one thing I knew was what I was going to deliver was going to look beautiful and people would engage and people would buy the product with intention to read and to keep it and to value it. And so I made a very risky choice, Josh, to continue on with print. And it's a much more expensive decision too. If I told you what my print run looked like and the bill, it's not a nice bill to get at the end. But the reason being is I wanted it to be of value because for me, people are very, very valuable, more than the dollar.
Yeah.
And this product was based on that too. For me, it was about creating a platform to show the value of the people and the region in something beautiful. So it was going to feel beautiful, it was going to look the part, and people that bought it and invested in it, they would feel the value of flipping through the pages.
Yeah.
And to this day, I have so many people say that they've kept every single collection. Like it's a keepsake, which is fantastic. But going back to, the decisions that needed to be made, so I had to be clear that I wanted it to be a tangible product. It had, then we had go through with what does the pages feel like? What's my GSM? There's a mix in that as well. Is it, I went with a particular type of satin. So, you've got all those decisions you've got to make. And then where is it available and how is it available? What's the price point? If you go $15, is that too high? If you've got to make money on the thing as well. As it was, I probably didn't. I'm not a very good businesswoman, let's just say that. I think I should have probably charged a hell of a lot more.
I can't remember. I remember I purchased a few of them because I think Deb Woodall might have had a few articles in there and she was someone that we used to DJ things that I used to go to. I remember it was tactile in a way that other things around here weren't. Do you think that maybe did you undervalue the physical item?
Yes, I did, 100%.
Because I think in that kind of niche and with that kind of beautiful product, I think a high price can sometimes add prestige.
Yes. I think, look, I went into the market wanting to deliver something that everyone had access to. And so for me, I spoke to a few newsagents and asked them what their price point, their best price point was. And they were like, $10 is usually a really good entry mark because people can just, it's a $10 note or it's just a rounded figure. So I went more along their advice than doing facts and figures. And it's all good because I think at the end of the day, you get to a point in life where you go, I have visions and I can do amazing things. I got to get better at accounting.
And sometimes it's not actually about the money. So I'm not personally driven by money. I'm driven by what I can do.
You're not? That's why you're on the show, because I'm not either.
We're all the same.
But I can sort of reconcile what you're saying is I think for you it was more about getting that across the line. More people can touch it. More people can see how good it is. And it's not necessarily about what you get out of it is the warm, fuzzy, feel-good feelings that you're helping people. It's not about the coinage. The coin part, that hurts further down further down the line. But that's not the intention necessarily when you come up with these great ideas, I imagine.
Absolutely, Mel. Exactly.
That's what hurts later on.
Exactly. When COVID happens, you go, damn it, I should have spent.
I sometimes have struggled to articulate this to Mel, but she has asked me in the past, before Mel was on the show, back when it wasn't as good, she asked why I decided for it to be local. Because it's a pretty strange – usually the benefit of a podcast is that it can potentially be global as opposed to local. And really the genesis of this show came from, of all things, a really – it's kind of a niche TV show called Republic of Doyle, which is about this tiny little part of the world in Canada. And their show was basically like an entertaining love letter to the region. Everything about it just breathes the city that it's filmed in. The accents, the words, like they speak a funny version of English, to be honest. It's pretty entertaining, but that was what I wanted to do with Punching Sideways. And you probably did that to an even grander level of something that basically what I wanted to do, and I've tried to get, I'm struggling again to get it out, but I wanted to create something regionally that people can't listen to and think, oh, that's just a regional creation.
Yes.
That it's as good as anything that's made anywhere. Yeah. And I think that you obviously managed to do that because went beyond the area into the Qantas Lounge and things where they've got a choice of anything they want to put in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like was that something you were focused on and making it? Because sometimes I think people that are regionally based limit their decision on how good they want something to be because it only has to be good enough for the region.
Yes, absolutely. I think my intention at the time wasn't for it to get as big as it became. But my intention was to deliver something beautiful because I believe that our community deserve that. And that's my level of delivery anyway. Like I'm not ever going to do anything if I can't do it 150%.
Level of delivery, I can see why you're a fan. That sounds like something Mel would say.
Oh, really?
Should we squirrel that one away?
It's stuck up there. That'll come out and I'll act like it's something profound out of my mouth further down the track.
You've got it, darling. It's all yours. You can take. So I think, so when it came to the market, it was actually quite interesting. I had so many people say, oh, is this done here in Albury-Wodonga? And I'm like, yeah, like we've got a local team. Like these, as you know, Deb was one of the writers, amazing young woman, and all local writers, local photographers. Yes, it was, printed here locally, and we had, our graphic artists here. And it was just, I think it was a really interesting time because it felt like people didn't realise how much talent we have in our region. And I still hear that today. Like I hear of some people sort of like to go out of town like Melbourne or Sydney to get jobs done, particularly in media or graphics or whatever have you. And it can be very disappointing to hear that, because we have got an abundance of artists here and creatives, and they're all so beautiful to work with too. Like, one thing I found working in our local space is you've got so many people that want to give and they want to be part of something. And before Go was born, there was nothing for anyone to be a real part of.
Yeah.
And so
that was around, well, to me, in my mind, that was contemporaneous with the Border Mail basically abandoning. I don't like, but they basically had to, for whatever financial reason. There was no what's on Thursday stuff in the.
Because they'd done the figures.
Yeah. They've got the accountants.
They had the accountants.
Get the bed.
Bernie's here like, I don't understand any of this. I'm just going to make this happen again.
Yeah. Let the girl from Griffith do that.
This actually brings me to the question. You just mentioned in Griffith. Where did this love of Albury-Wodonga and the surrounds come from?
Yeah.
Because you're not from here.
No, yeah.
So tell me about this.
Look, I remember the first time I visit Albury was when I was at high school, and we came to the old art centre. And I had this absolute love for the main street there and then, because in Griffith we don't really have a lot of beautiful old buildings like we do here in Albury. And I would have been probably about 16, I think. And I just remember thinking, wow, I couldn't believe that this city was 3 hours away from Griffith. And I just remember thinking, oh, one day I'm going to live there.
Really?
Yeah, I did. How weird's that?
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so years have passed, and I've moved to Melbourne, Canberra, Sydney, and I met my ex-husband now, but my partner at the time, and he was a Wang boy.
Yeah.
And so, and I'd actually come up because I used to manage models. Yeah. Back in Griffith many years ago, and after I had released my very first magazine. So I released a magazine in Griffith when I was in my 20s. Yeah. And this is where, I've got the publishing background or whatever have you. And so I met Sam and then moved up here, and I just fell in love with it. Like I said, you guys are so lucky. Even when I first moved here, I actually wanted to start the magazine back then.
Really?
Yeah. And he's like, I don't think it's going to get legs. Like, it's a different type of community than what Griffith is. And I'm like, I don't understand that. Why wouldn't it succeed? Which now when I think, back, it would have made sense.
Wrong person in your court. Yep. I can see it straight.
Exactly. Sister. But, oh dear. But it's sort of like, and back then it would have made sense to actually launch the magazine because it was print back then, it was like early 2002 or something. And print was very much alive. But yeah, so anyway, and I just remember thinking, wow, you're 3 hours away from Melbourne. We've got the snow just up the road. We've got this beautiful lake. You've got these gorgeous buildings. Yeah. It was buzzing. And that was around the time too, I think, like the CSU still had the campus in town. Yeah. So there was just this vibe, and I just fell in love with it. And I have ever since. I just think we've got so much here to offer. But one thing I did discover was we were lacking this community connection. Yeah. And I don't mean that by any disrespect. I mean, there is obviously levels of it. But, I would like to think that COVID is going to build a real strong foundation now, particularly with what's happened with the border closures. I feel like perhaps people are going to start valuing each other a little bit more. And I hope that is the case. Because moving in from Griffith, there's not much over there. But one thing they have is they know how to support each other. Yeah. And even to this day, if you go back over, they've got it's a thriving little buzzy town, and they have to be because they're so disconnected, I guess. Wodonga's 2 hours away. But they know how to support each other.
But even, my experience mostly in that part of the world was Wodonga. My old cover band / original bands over the years played there a couple of times a year minimum.
Yeah.
I used to notice that all of the bands would watch all the bands in Wodonga. Like half the crowd was made up of other bands. Yes. And I think it was because there wasn't another city on the other side of a river, and there wasn't Melbourne a few hours away like there is here. They were very much supporting each other in a way I hadn't seen in Albury. Yeah. And I used to say to them, wow, the nightlife is way better up here than Albury for bands. and for
Yeah.
musicians. And the guys in Wagga used to be like, what are you talking about? You're only a few hours from Melbourne. I'm like, yeah, but now that you've said that, that might have been part of the issue.
Yes.
Was that people weren't really focused at all about supporting people right around them. They were always thinking.
We've got too many options here
Too many options.
that we
Yes.
don't probably give enough recognition to
do
what we
you
have.
think by extension what you were saying, Bernadette, that maybe COVID will make people realise that some more community would be a good thing here? Do you think that will flow on to people? Because another thing that Wagga does, that just going back to bands, is when there was a band on, it was always supported by people. You wouldn't put an event on and then have no one turn up.
Yes.
Whereas sometimes it feels like getting people out of their house here. I live over in Wodonga. I'm not going to something in Albury.
Yes.
Mate, it's closer than White Box Rise Coles. Like to get to these streets.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
There's some weird barriers in people's heads when it comes to effort around here.
There
to
really
support stuff.
is. And there really is. And Josh, you're right. And this is where, going back to the magazine, I really wanted people, I wanted to dissolve that. And this whole mentality of no, I'm not going to cross over. I've experienced that too. It's like even with the fashion show, last year we had at the Promenade. It was stunning. Like if you
it's
get
gorgeous over there.
and if you get on the onto our Facebook page and have a look at how we created that space, all the guests, and I can say all because they all came up and congratulated me.
Yeah.
They said that was something that you would have seen over in Milan. Like it was next level, and it was.
Yeah.
But a lot of people didn't come over from Albury because it was in Wodonga.
Yeah.
And, they're like, oh, it's a bit too far away. I'm like, but you'll drive 3 hours down the road to Melbourne, bypass Wodonga to go shopping or to support something over there. And that's great. That's fine.
Yeah.
But don't tell me that a trip over a bridge is too far away to support something. It's not, I'm not.
It's not made out of two matchsticks either.
No,
It's not like it's
Cop out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that whole, they're the poor cousin or whatever have you. We've got to really dissolve that mentality so that our kids can have a chance at getting ahead as well. Because the reality is, Wodonga is beautiful. They've got some amazing spaces that you can take the kids out, walking tracks and whatever have you. They're really building up the CBD there. Junction Place is beautiful. You've got the likes of Miss Emily and whatever have you there. So it's a really happening place. Not to say that Albury's not, because it is too here. So why are we not just using both spaces and loving both?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It is. It does blow my mind that you can drive from Thaguna to Wodonga a lot quicker sometimes than you can get from Central Albury to Wodonga. Like, they are so close to each other with now the Bandiana Link and all those other it's easy. But like you were both saying, I don't understand it either. Why there is just this it's almost like the rivalry thing too.
Yeah.
That people just need to get out of their own heads and you're doing a good job at that.
Oh, thank
Well,
you, Mel.
I
hope so. I'm trying. I'm trying, honey. I'm punching on.
So the fashion show.
Yes.
What can we expect from this?
Oh, my goodness. So we have got a beautiful designer by the name of Daniel Lemont Smith. He's coming down from Sydney.
Yeah.
The sad thing, going back to, where I was at a few weeks ago, was a lot of our designers that were coming from Melbourne, unfortunately, as we know, they're not allowed to leave Melbourne.
Yeah.
So they've all dissolved. But we have all of our New South Wales people on board, which is fantastic. So we get to see absolute glamour. We get red carpet outfits, wedding outfits. So it's a really great opportunity for people that are planning ahead for their wedding to come and have a look. Spring racing. So if the Albury Gold Cup goes ahead, great, for people to come and get inspired about what does 2021 look like.
Yeah.
We've got some amazing milliners, accessories. We've got a lot of retailers on board this year as well for both men and women.
Yeah.
So you can the great thing about the Go Fashion Show is it's not just about one type of genre of outfit. We mix everything in. So you are there watching it all.
Yeah.
It's the wedding, it's the red carpet, it's your day wears, it's absolutely everything for men and women. The other thing that I love about the show is that they're not all 6 foot, size 6 models. And I've done that on purpose because I dislike the whole mentality that that industry can carry, which is, you know, the absolute glamour pusses and, you know, you've got to be a particular size and weight and whatever have you. And I'm an advocate for women and men embracing themselves in their absolute beauty. We're born perfect. And, you know, and I love when I get a request for someone to be a model and they go, oh, but am I too small? I'm like, darling, you're just beautiful. No. So for me, it's an opportunity for all ages, all sizes to get on a runway, wear something amazing, feel beautiful and shine. And I love that. You know, that's what I get to deliver back into the community, is to give people that moment of glory, and the one thing that really makes me so happy is when we do our rehearsals, you know, like you see these young girls that have never done it before and they're sort of slouching over and, you know, they don't have too much confidence. And I'm like, you know what, honey, I just want you to close your eyes and think about how beautiful you are. Like, in your mind, you are that good. And now I want you to walk with that. And the changes you see just in the way they deliver themselves. Like, I'm about to tear up because it's just so beautiful. I know, because it really has an impact on them, you know, and then they carry themselves thereafter. And I just think it's beautiful. So above, you know, showing fashion, I'm showing, I'm giving people an opportunity to shine. And that to me is just like, well, you know, why wouldn't you?
No, I like you. I've decided. I'm not a real teary person, but the fact that you are now, just to give context to everyone, getting very emotional about the fact of bringing joy to others, and it's invoking this feeling within you that it's totally not about you at all. It's about everyone else and what you can do for them, which is a very admirable trait to have that's not often seen like normally down the street, like at all. So well done to you for that.
Mel.
I was going to ask whether I would be able to model next year.
Can we just table,
I would
table
love
Mel, because we want to put Mel through the Bernadette evaluation period, see if you can make her more confident. Can we just knock off the actual real specifics, times, costs, the actual date? If there's anything that people need to know because of just stuff to do with COVID, if they need to be aware of that sort of thing when it comes, you know, with how many people they can come with, if it has to be family, etc.
Absolutely, Josh. So it's October the 11th.
And anyone who's listening obviously realise that it's probably best to keep an eye on the page in case these details do change.
Do change.
Give us your social page.
Yep. So it's Go Fashion Show, which is our Facebook page, and that's where we'll make all of our announcements if things do change. But at this point in time, it's October the 11th, and that won't change, at 4 o'clock. We're holding it at the SSNA Auditorium, which is on level 1. We do have limited tickets because we've had to restrict it. So what people will see is, you know, they're 1.5 metre seating. Yeah. The cost is $85 for the ticket, which is, you know, complimentary glass of champagne and the entertainment. But you can also get Luxe VIP tickets as well, where you can book 5 to 10 people in your own group, and then we section that off. And we're looking at trying to get a little bit more entertainment as well on the day because, like I said, I wanted it to be a bit of a celebration about lifting COVID. As far as, you know, people, what they will need to understand is they will need to sign in. You know, we're asking if you're feeling even slightly unwell, please stay home. Yeah. You know, if you've... And I know, you know,
we've come this far.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And look, and I get that we've got hay fevers and there's all sorts of different things, but let's be honest, we don't want someone coughing and splattering just down. Yeah. You know, so and I've made that clear on the ticketing and said, look, we're happy to refund if you show us that. You know, you're unwell. That's fine. But yeah, you know what to expect. There's over 100 garments that will be on the catwalk. Wow. Yeah, like I said, we've got up to 60 models on the day. Cool vibes, you know, we've got the beautiful champagne, the canapes, red carpet experience.
Can anyone come?
Absolutely.
Anyone can come?
Absolutely.
Is there a dress code?
Oh, yes, there is. And, you know, I've got to put that on there.
Yeah.
So, it's not evening wear, but I would say cocktail wear. Like, come dressed up. Come
Come dressed there like you want
Like
to
you-
celebrate.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So cocktail
And if
dress.
for no other reason, you don't want to be the one person in that room that's wearing their third best flanny.
My best. This is my
That's
best.
her best flanny, by the
This
way.
is my best flanny.
But this is how gorgeous this girl is.
Yeah, I
Like she
know.
can actually rock a flanny.
Yeah.
Like who can do that?
Yeah, it's very few.
Seriously.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll include all of those details in the notes, and if they
Yeah.
do change and you're listening to this, I'll make the changes to the notes that are going along with the show. Can we put Mel through the ringer now?
Absolutely. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Done.
How can we make this better? I mean, this doesn't just happen, guys.
Can I ask, just on gut feel, Bernadette,
Yes.
when now that you obviously know Mel, you're getting to know her better, you've now been looking at her for an hour.
Poor thing, I'm sorry.
What do you look at her and think she would be good at modelling this? What's your first reaction when you see
Oh,
it?
honey, I see you in evening.
Oh, golly.
Yep.
I
I
can't
do.
even,
For
I
those
can't even
listening,
get
Mel's
a
got a
real,
look of shock on her
I can't
face.
even get a real good swear word out because I'm in shock. Do you know, I will say it makes me very uncomfortable to wear a dress because I actually am uncomfortable with that attention. So in evening wearing that, where I'm all exposed and that, it's a very vulnerable place. So I can see why you have to chat to your models and bring them out of their shell, because to me, I'm sitting here in my flanny and I can be my best self because it's almost like a cloak, like an invisibility cloak that I can just blend in and use my voice to just go. "Blah, blah, blah, blah." But if I was sort of showing bits of skin and that, I'd have to act like a lady. I don't know. And I
would
might
act-
have to do my hair. Or can someone else do my hair?
Someone
for-
else would do
Oh,
your hair,
then-
darling. How's
then
that? Yeah.
If someone can do my hair, then
100%.
then I could potentially do evening wear.
So not active wear? I know Bernadette did comment on your active. Is there any room for active wear in the scene that you're talking about at any point? Because, I mean, it's
Yeah.
Absolutely.
such a
Yeah,
huge
that's
thing
a
now.
thing.
It is. Well, look, we actually had 2 Australian designers lined up for activewear. And unfortunately, so this is what a lot of people don't see.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, they're in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And so they can't come
Yeah.
over. And I just got off the phone the other day to one of the designers, and some of his stock it's designed here in Australia,
Yeah.
but they get it manufactured over
Yeah.
in Bali. And so this is all behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we don't see is Bali closed down for their spiritual week.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, Bali had an extra week put on top of that
Yeah.
closure.
Yeah.
They're now also talking apparently about restricting it over there as well. So it's put a lot of pressure on
Yeah.
delivery and manufacturing and whatever have you.
Yeah.
So the ramifications is now that good old, designer in Melbourne has no stock,
Yeah.
which means I don't have anything to put on the catwalk for him.
Yeah.
So we had to pull that as well. Because originally I said to the guys, why don't you just send your stock over to me?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'll take care of it for you, because I want as many people on the catwalk as I can. It's all about showing them.
Yeah.
And they were like, you know what, we would have loved to, but we don't even have enough of a range.
Oh, wow.
So this is what COVID's done in the fashion industry as
Yeah.
well. I've got even some of our locals that usually come on board. They have been just in a really, some in a bad headspace, others just so flat out with making masks that they don't even have time to make and create their gowns that they usually do.
Yeah.
So it's been a really tricky year
Yeah.
in the fashion industry.
And I will say that I've known that activewear was going to be fashionable my whole life. I've just been waiting for everyone else to jump on board.
Yeah.
I'm a bloody innovator.
You are, sister. Look at you.
I'm just owning it. Flannies came
You're-
back into fashion.
You're definitely a stick with it kind of person. Because
Yep.
I was in progressive rock bands my whole life.
Yeah.
Got out of being in bands in 2013, 2015, 16. All of the big heavy rock bands were all super progressive, and I was already out. If they're running and you've just stuck with the trend long enough.
Well, I relate to you. I'm authentically me, and I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm someone else by following what other people are doing. And if this is what I like to wear, then this is what I'm going to wear because it makes
That's
me
it.
happy. And
Yeah.
it's my best self. So that's it.
And you rock it.
Take what You like it or you don't like it. And if you don't like it, that's just unfortunate for you.
Yeah, exactly, honey, because they miss out. That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
That was a very
They do.
polite FU. Not to me, but to whoever you're talking to. That sounded awfully specific to somebody.
No, it's not. And it's just a thing that people sometimes, and like Bernadette, even with you just running with your fashion show and everything, which is unheard of around here, people are afraid of what's different.
Yes.
And what's new and what isn't like ingrained. So they can sometimes often attack or try and pick apart things that aren't sort of just in mainstream.
I'm not sure if what you're doing is reflective of what most fashion shows are like, but it seems like body type wise and also range wise, or whatever you call it, a selection of clothing for a fashion show, it seems like it's much more accessible to the everyday person than maybe I expected.
Yes, it is.
I'm keen.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, a lot of mothers from these beautiful young women are so proud and happy to have their daughters be part of it.
Yeah.
Because they see that. They see the delivery and, they've come up to me often and said, Bernadette, you are such an inspiration to our daughter, and thank you for letting it be safe to embrace her for who she is.
Yeah.
And you're right, Mel, like a lot of people, when it's different, a lot of people get very frightened of that.
Yeah.
And even for myself, I mean, I've got a great following, but there's a lot of people that want to knock me down too. I've got tall poppy syndrome happening all the time.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm the black sheep, and I do things that are different and I do things that are grand, and, and people can be very frightened of that. Yeah. And irrespective of whether I am successful or not, if it threatens their mind, then I'm a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then it's a horrible space to be in when you're built like this, where all you want to do is give and love people, and then you get these people that won't support you, or they try to knock you down, or they're sabotaging you. And trust me, if I told you some stories, you'd be like horrified of the type of bullying I've had to face over the last 5 years. Enough that I reckon it would have broken some people. But I'm just very lucky that I am who I am.
Do you find that with going against the grain, right, and people will come out of the woodwork and try and pick all that apart, it's obviously it is a threat to them. And the bullying part, well, obviously it's more about them and where their insecurities lie than what is the overreaching issue. And I often think that I'm surprised by what can come out of people because it's not in your nature.
Yes.
So do you think it hits you even harder because you're going out there with the best intentions? This is what I want to do because this is good. This is a good thing. This isn't like I'm going out to make money off everyone. We've discussed that. And then all of a sudden just this negativity comes and you almost get blindsided. It happens to me a little bit, and I'm not saying that on the scheme of what but you're just like, I did not see that coming, even though it's a repetitive cycle, because it's not ingrained in your head as a natural behaviour. It's often just a bloody slap in the face every time it comes. You're just like, I don't even understand how they got to that point. And to try and pick that apart then and go, righto, how do I understand that process or how that person got there? But well done to you for pushing past that. But that's just how I see it, is that sometimes when you've got that pure intention, it can just come at you from nowhere if it hits
you for a 6 mil. You're right, honey. And so I think I said to you when we first had our conversation, was I've got this theory, and I say it all the time. I don't compete.
Yeah.
I collaborate.
Yeah.
So, and I did that when I came to the market with Go Local Magazine. I actually reached out to all the mediums in media. And I said, hey, I'm Bernadette. I'm going to have a magazine. How can we work together? And they looked at me like I was a psychopath. They're like, who's this woman who's meant to be my competitor wanting to work with me? See, I didn't come into the market thinking that. Like when I went to the radio stations, television stations, and even to Border Mail, I spoke to them about how can we work together, because I've got a message that I want to send, and that's bringing everybody together.
Yeah.
We can't do that if we're not playing nicely.
Yeah.
So in my mind it was completely innocent.
It made sense. Yeah.
And so a lot of people, obviously didn't come on, but then some did, which was fabulous. And they saw the value in collaboration.
Yeah.
And so I came up with this thing, and I stay very strong in it, is that I don't compete with anyone, not women, not in business, not in anything. I am who I am.
Yeah.
I'll stand strong in this. If you want to compete with me, you're wasting your time, but I will collaborate with you.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so I think, if there's anything that I want to sort of a message to send out to anyone who feels like they're always got that struggle, don't even compete. Don't even run the race.
Yeah.
Who are you impressing?
Yeah.
You don't have to,
On that note,
That's a good note.
give us your platforms again, so everyone can get on board and not compete, just collaborate and support you. And we can all get around to the fashion show.
I would love that. So we start the fashion weekend off on Friday the 9th.
Yeah.
So we have got a launch party at the Fabric, which is at Albury-Wodonga. So that starts at 5:00, and that's just a great opportunity for whoever wants to come, buy a ticket, champagne, canapes, meet the designers, have a look at what the new season looks are. For some people that may want to get fitted, that's their opportunity to get fitted by the designers on the night. There'll be some funky beats,
Cool.
just, food throughout the night, just something really different.
Yeah.
So that's how we open our fashion weekend. Saturday we'll all be frantic.
Yeah.
So just everyone rest up, because on Sunday we have our fashion show at the SSNA from 4 p.m. on the 11th, legs 11.
Cool. So get onto your social page.
Yeah, so it's Go Fashion Show or Go Local Media. So jump on both of them and we'll update it. And
Excellent. Thank you for being our first guest and being awesome.
Bernadette Torresan.
I love it.
Thank you for having us
in
your space.
Yes.
No, you're beautiful. Thank you, guys. Just truly very grateful. You're just stunning. Thanks, guys.
What do they call the pianola pianos where they scroll along?
That's a deep reference.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story about pianola pianos. My gran had one and used to set it up and push the pedals hardcore when everyone else was at dinner and that. And I remember one time sitting there and putting books or something either side of my feet so that no one could see my feet.
Right.
And then just sitting there going not Pavarotti. Who's a
Pavarotti would have been interesting.
who's a pianist? Chopin.
Chopin,
I was pretending I was Chopin, and it was fun. I was trying to quickly gauge where the keys were going down, because when you have you ever seen a pianola? When you're pushing the pedals, the keys start to go down as they get played.
Yeah.
So I was quickly I was like 5 and thought that I had everyone bluffed.
It's more believable than, hey, Nan, I'm a fat Italian opera singer.
That is true.
Because you don't really resemble a Pavarotti type.
No. But
It doesn't matter
I do
what
have a loud
Chopin
voice.
looked like. Chopin looked more like you than Pavarotti.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's a good way to get back into. Bernadette mentioned that she has Italian heritage.
She did. Yeah.
And I'm always interested in, there's so much mythology around that Italian Griffith, New South Wales history, which we managed to not even delve into, which is probably best, because most people that are actually from there are like, most of that's made up.
Yeah, that's true. And also she did mention her Italian heritage, because earlier she'd said how she doesn't have gluten or anything anymore, so she's pretty much
Was that on the mic?
No, terrible Italian.
Have I told you that I think other than a barbecue where I felt like I would be a social pariah if I didn't have a sausage and bread, I haven't had a piece of bread for 4 months.
Fist bump.
And I was consuming more bread up until that point over the preceding 2 or 3 years, and I probably on a daily basis than I ever have.
Yeah.
I was basically eating myself to death with bread.
It's just a real clogging thing, isn't it? Well, it's also
It's high in sugar was the thing that I was trying to cut out. And I thought, well, what's the biggest source of sugar in my diet is probably bread.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that was the main reason I cut it. But we've talked about how I used to, and I always have had big crashes in the afternoon where I don't feel
Yeah,
productive.
yeah. 3 o'clock, we weren't allowed to do anything after 3.
But I've realised that about myself, particularly in my old job, because I was by myself and I was essentially most of the time in charge of my own time.
Yeah.
I would feel myself almost crashing into the keyboard, like micro sleeps at about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then between 4 and 5, I would do more work than I usually would do for the whole day.
Yeah, right.
But I'm having no crashes.
That's good.
Are you a believer, though? Where I'm trying to get to is
You're a believer, not a believer.
believer. You look like a believer. You look like a grown-up believer. One of those people that's fringed too old for it.
I'm a little groovy. No.
With the right makeup and the right outfit, the right flatty.
This is the right flatty.
That is a nice one.
Yeah, thanks.
Just the going cold turkey, I guess is the expression.
Yeah.
Like, as someone that's worked in helping people with their bodies in the past when you're doing physio work and strapping and all that sort of stuff. So you've got some knowledge of the health space.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on people just going cold turkey on things?
On sugar?
Or just anything. Like, do you have a feeling on cold turkey? Like, when you plan to make a change in life, Mel, do you just go...
I'm a bit all or nothing.
Me too.
You know that with me. Yeah. I don't think it's effective for everyone, and I've also had to say it's an exercise thing. I'll tend to go like 1,000,000 miles an hour and just load more and more and more on. So I have to pare that back because your body can't recover. With cutting stuff out, I've tried in the past cutting everything out, and it's also effective. You go through that initial like, I feel crap.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, I felt like a zombie for a couple of weeks after my just cutting bread out because I guess it was giving me so much sugar spike all the time.
Well, your body has to adjust. But here's the thing, right? If you're an alcoholic, you can't just pare it back.
No.
Like, you have to cut it out cold turkey.
Yeah.
I think it's just all relevant to how you operate. And I do believe, though, if you do go cold turkey and you slip, to try very, very hard not to go, throw your hands in the air, throw your toys out of the cot and go, that's it, I'm done. But I will say as well, if you do go cold turkey on something, you will feel the immediate bad effects of what you put into your body if you've got a complete clean slate. So I know for me, I don't drink alcohol, and I am so heightened and aware to the after effects of that now, like for the week after, because it's not in my body all the time. So I'm super sensitized to that. Whereas I think if you're taking it on all the time, you don't sort of know what good can feel like.
Yeah.
Would that be right?
I think I do agree. And obviously for anyone that's listened this far into the episode and is like, what are these guys becoming doctors after talking about fashion shows? We're talking about things that obviously only have a mild level of biochemical addiction.
Yeah.
We're not talking about highly addictive things.
No.
But how I'm kind of thinking about, Bernadette made reference several times to the amount of investment that it took to pull this show off.
Yeah.
There is, and I know just from different parts of my life where I've got really obsessed with something creative, that I've had to cut out a lot of different things, including certain people out of my life.
Yeah.
And not everyone is supportive of when you go cold turkey because their instant reaction is, that's stupid, it will fail if you do that.
Well, I think that's more a perception of them.
Correct.
Than it is of you. And
because people don't like to think that you're capable of just change. Like, a lot of people don't want you just to be able to go, okay, I'm sick of that behaviour, I'm changing.
Here's what it is. A lot of people don't want to reflect on what's going on in their lives too much. So if you're the one that you can go out and drink with and everything all the time, and then all of a sudden you can go out and not drink, then that person will potentially try and push you to drink to make them feel better about their own choice, or will feel uncomfortable around it, which is all about them. So I've found it with like my dietary stuff from when I got really sick and I can barely sort of have much solid food at all, which limits a lot of social interactions because most people will come out for dinner. But most of my supportive group just take that as part of the parcel.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, if you've got an issue with that, that's your issue.
Yeah.
Because I'm happy to come out with you and socialise and everything, but it's more about how your perception of it is than how it affects me.
Well, my no bread moment has been the first time, the entire time, where I felt confident that I'm going to stick out.
I love it.
The increased activity, but also refining my diet down.
Do you know what's funny? Funny to me, I know some other people operate in a different way and they're like, oh, I'll just go and exercise and then I can have all this food.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm so much more in tune with everything that's going into my body when I'm exercising and working hard, because it's counterproductive otherwise. I'm like, why am I doing all this effort?
Yeah.
I
I call that the Ovens and Murray footballer effect. And stick with me here. I used to know a few pretty high quality football players through female housemates dating a couple of these guys. And maybe they weren't at O&M level, but
dating or liaising?
Liaising, dating / having short.
I've worked with a lot of O&M footballers and I would say liaising. Over dating.
Maybe that's generous. But obviously they're not super elite athletes. No. They're just really good football players. Yeah. Their whole thing was work their ass off during the week, play the game, then party hard for 2 days.
Yeah.
And they really, like some of them that knew, okay, I'm not going to be one of the better, higher paid players in the O&M. I'm going to be a fringe player or a good player in a lower league. Yeah. Their whole thing was, I'm just working hard to burn off the partying.
Yeah.
And I'm partying to burn off the stress of working hard.
Yeah.
But they were just trying to stay neutral.
Level.
Level.
Well, I suppose whatever works for you, hey? Yeah. I feel like, for me, I'm more accountable because I've probably got more variables that add in. So if I don't look after what goes into my body well, it can make me feel really sick.
Yeah.
So that will then mean that if I'm turning up to go to the gym or something, then what I can do is less or less effective. So it's sort of a reference point to that more. Like,
so you're kind of, in a way, always exposed to that asymmetric risk of what goes into the body or the behaviours, because whatever the negative outcome is for a normal person, it can be more acute for you. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah. And that just is because I was on massive amounts of medication. The condition that I have basically attacked my stomach and internal side of things.
Sorry, Mel. Did we talk about in the last episode, for people that listened to episode 50, that this is not something that just mysteriously disappeared either? You're managing the after effects of that time on a daily basis still. Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't, because we just went validation.
Well, with many more F words, I think, at the time.
No, it's just I suppose it's almost harder now, I think, for people to understand, because I look quite healthy.
Yeah.
But I have to manage a lot of things. And when I say I have to manage a lot of things, it's part of the parcel now.
Yeah.
But it still is limiting on different factors within my life, like social things and all that sort of stuff, which I don't always like to have the conversation because it exposes a lot of past stuff. If I'm there in a collective and go sort of, I can't really eat that, they think you're fussy or anything like that, but it's much more intertwined than that.
Yeah.
But I have to move every day. So maybe there is a massive fear of going back to being, I would say, medically, like all my conditions are alleviated and managed. I would, I've got a good kidney capacity now. There's nothing really wrong. I've just got to keep monitoring myself, but I have to keep my body working because of all the toll it had. Basically, like an old restored classic car, I reckon, where it might take me a little bit longer to
maybe a classic tractor.
Kick the motor
did a lot
going.
Of hard work back in the day.
Kick the motor going, or you have to. It maybe doesn't have all the parts the same as what you turned up with. But just have to put a bit of TLC into it to make sure it keeps going every day.
And talking about just sticking with things, getting back to Bernadette, obviously through the episode people would have heard how much
amazing woman.
the build-up was really years and years in the making to get to the point where she could handle something like a COVID and still be able to produce this show that's coming up.
Do you know what really...
Like, I don't think a rookie person in the business could have been thrown something like a COVID shutdown to like a rookie media company and just said, okay, I'm going to fight through this and still produce something.
No. She's very resilient, which is what I really like about her. And the thing that really resonated with me is how much you could see, and probably I hope that it comes across in her voice, how much she really just wanted to help people. Yeah. Like, she was very emotional about it. It definitely, obviously there's the byproduct of you've done all this really good stuff, but there's a investment into people there, which I felt was really cool.
I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of heartwarming.
It was. My heart, which is really warm, I reckon.
Lukewarm.
It got a bit tepid.
Yeah. That's it. So, speaking of lukewarm, we don't like lukewarm coffees. We like them kind of hot.
We do like them kind of hot. I like mine extra hot. Have you noticed?
I do. And just as someone, I never used to make coffees other than early in my hospitality days, I used to have to make the free ones on the gaming floor.
Yeah.
Anyone that asks for a specific temperature, I'm going to give you some advice for people like Mel. If you want a nice coffee, just take it as is. Don't ask for a specific temperature because it's going to either end up burnt or...
Yeah, look...
you're going to end up with half as much sugar in there as you should have. People like to mess with coffees where people request specific temperatures.
I just want what I want. And do you know what? I'd happily make it my own for myself.
Just pop around the back of the desk. Just jump out of the way, love.
Do you know the reason why I like it really hot? It's because I just like to sip it. I don't like sculling it. And it's also to do with taking too much in at once.
That makes sense. I've never thought about it, but as soon as you were saying it, I'm like, because you can draw out your intake for a longer period before it gets cold.
And I don't tolerate too much fluid at once.
Yeah, okay.
So there you go.
We might leave today at that. So,
no. One more thing.
Okay, fire away.
So I've since found out
oh, yes,
this is very important. So this fashion show that is happening, which is I've learnt another word, avant-garde.
Avant-garde, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
A good one,
That's a fancy word.
Yeah.
It's actually sold out at the moment, and this is due to COVID restrictions. But there is a wait list that's being created because they're hoping that by the time that this happens next week, there will be more seats available. So put your name on the guest list and you'll be contacted if more seats become available.
So in case there's an increase in potential, like overall numbers, and or I guess there could be people that cancel or have other plans.
Yeah, maybe because you were pretty strict on Bernie was pretty strict on if you're not well, please don't come.
Yeah, definitely get on that waiting list if you're interested in what you heard today.
Yeah.
Go Fashion Show on Facebook. They have a dedicated page to that.
They do have dedicated, and we're on it.
We are.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, we are. That's a great photo. Yeah. Also, we're on Facebook just with Punching Sideways. So we're finally on there.
Are we?
We are. I haven't really promoted it because it was going to kind of be with this episode.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
So you'll find that if you've listened this far in, we're on there.
We're all learning, guys.
We'd love for you to be one of our first people to like the page. It's been a long time coming. Mel's work on the artwork got us there. We finally got all the assets, and we might also steal Bernadette's picture.
I am the asset.
You are the asset. That's
Thank
correct.
you very much.
And you can go to punchingsideways.com to listen, click play, share an episode, and or buy us a coffee with the button there.
Yeah.
And just in case you're wondering, it really does make a difference because I wouldn't have been able to afford to pay for artwork variations or the hosting of the website without the support because I just collected all that money up.
Yeah.
Together, and it paid for most of our new artwork without me having to basically come out of pocket.
And thanks, guys, because I made it.
It still the assets
harder than what it could have been.
It ended up being worth it, though. Sometimes you've got to go through the rigmarole of creative things.
Of dealing with Mel.
With Mels. Yep. I've been in bands, and I was always that guy. I was the musical Mel. That's not good enough. No, do it again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so don't ever worry about being a Mel. Righto, guys. Thank you, and see you later.
Laters.